Good afternoon, Mind Trippers, and welcome back to Mind Trip, where we explore the connections between mindsets and mental health.
Yes, guys, as always, we love that you guys tune in every week to kind of see the message that we have to bring to you. And this month's message, but especially this week, is so powerful. Nikki and I always are sitting down doing research and trying to figure out what's the best content to bring to the women on this network. So as you know, we are focusing on leadership or luck, how to get your pot of gold. But today we kind of revised what we wanted to do. And there's more so a focus on women in leadership. So what I want to share with you guys is today we're going to do some myth busting. Because I kind of feel like, I might be biased, right, Nikki? But women, in my opinion, are better leaders than men.
Well, I don't know about better leaders, but we certainly, given the same set of skills, we certainly have more obstacles to overcome. And that's definitely something that is true, that, we have stats to back that up and that we want to address today.
Absolutely. So, Nikki and I love to share that Bible verse of our show. And the one we're going to share today is quite lengthy, and many of you may know what it is, but it focuses on the virtues of a noble woman. So we're going to focus today on Proverbs chapter 31, verses 10 through 31. But for specifically, what we want you guys to focus on today is Proverbs 31, verse 26. And that is, when she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instruction with kindness. And again, when she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instructions with kindness. When I read that Bible verse to myself, I kind of feel like that defines the true nature of a woman in general. Very kind, very nurturing, doing what you can to not only grow yourself, but you have to do what you can to grow and support those around you, whether it's your kids, your spouse, your friends. That's just what that Bible verse means to me.
Absolutely. And, in going with Proverbs, there's another part in scripture, Proverbs chapter 11, verse 16, that says, "A gracious woman gains respect, but ruthless men only gain wealth." And as we have these discussions today, we're going to talk about what true leadership means. And I think, one of the biggest obstacles is that men can lead with good leadership skills, or they can lead with ruthlessness or authority, and either way they get the job done. Whereas women have to have these leadership skills and really can only execute them with that kind of quality, because we don't have the same authority, or we don't have the same stance, the same status that men have in order to have people follow us. And so we have some extra hurdles to go through.
I do think it's a difficult double standard that women experience. Men can say whatever they want. They can do whatever they want. According to the Bible verse you just shared, Nikki, Proverbs 11:16, they can be ruthless, and it's admired, right? It's looked at like, wow, he has the tenacity to get the job done, or wow, he does what it takes. He's not afraid to voice his opinion. But what happens when you apply those same characteristics over to a woman? Then the narrative kind of begins to shift. It's kind of like a 5-letter word that starts with a B that I'm not going to soil this network with, but that's what a woman will be labeled with, right?
Bossy, right?
Okay. Yes. Bossy. Yes, bossy. You guys get it. She's bossy. She's emotionally out of control. Like, what is she doing? Like, it's crazy just the way that if a woman were to behave in a leadership role as a man, there's going to be so many question marks over her head and her ability to truly lead.
Yeah, and so this is not by any means men bashing. Again, there's a ton of wonderful male leaders out there, and there's a ton of really bad female leaders out there. So we know this. But I think what really struck us is that, women make up half of this population. Women are the reason we can procreate and continue to have a population, right? And yet we only make up 10% of leaders worldwide. 10%. That number is just abysmal.
That's the best way to put it, abysmal. That caught me off guard. Yeah, it's abysmal. again, just thinking about women and their ability to lead a household. I know last week we talked about leadership in home. So I kind of want to bring that in a little bit right now. And women tend to hold the house down in more traditional roles, should I say. The woman is at home, she's cooking, she's cleaning, she's nurturing her children. She has the plate of good hot steak and potatoes ready when her husband walks through the door. But nowadays, the modern woman is doing all of that plus a job. She's working from home, maybe she's working at the office, but leadership looks different in all different types of realms for women. So it's really crazy. In so many different realms. Why are we not projected into leadership roles within the community or within the career? 10%? Are you kidding me? That's really sad.
Yeah, and the interesting part, Taylor, when you had talked about women having all these roles, right? So like you said, we have these traditional roles in the home. We are carrying children. We birth them. We get them ready. We make sure the house is clean, scheduling doctor's appointments, and then going to work and handling whatever we need to handle there. And so the interesting part about all that is those things I know may sometimes feel, I don't want to say worthless, but you may feel underappreciated or undervalued, but those skills do come in handy because in a study done by the Harvard Business Review, women make better leaders during crises. And oftentimes, despite nationality, despite what country we're talking about, despite the leadership position, when there is a national crisis happening, most oftentimes women leaders are called upon to assist.
Absolutely, Nick, and you're right. Women do better in crises. I feel like sometimes men, this isn't men bashing, but when you think about you ladies that have boyfriends, husbands, significant others, when they get sick, what happens? Oh, I can't do this. Oh, stop the world. Oh my gosh, call my mom. That's what Tommy does. Call my mom. Sorry to throw him under the bus. But women, when a crisis is happening, whether we're sick or there's a lot going on at home, women are still better equipped to handle these crises. Let's think about the coronavirus crisis. There has been multiple articles that the Prime Minister of New Zealand, I think her name is Jacinda Ardern. Look what she did. She was one of the first leaders to be able to get the COVID crisis under control for her country. And again, like, we need to focus more on those type of qualities that a woman can bring to a leadership role that may not necessarily be captured in the male leader.
Mm-hmm. And, so in defense of men, I think from the time they are young, they're not necessarily put in the same position and the expectations aren't the same. So to no fault of their own necessarily, right? It's a generational situation as well. But even thinking about, and I've said this as well, but women are just better multitaskers, which we know is not true. We know our brains are no different. And there's a ton of jokes and things, but in reality, the male and female brain are not that different. They're both capable of the exact same things. We just like to think we're so different, but we're not. It's really a thing that society has placed on gender roles and norms, and there's really biologically not that big of a difference. Some, yes, but not huge. So when we think about that, why do women tend to do better in crises? And I think it really does go back to, from a very young age, we're told we're better multitaskers, so it builds up that confidence. And then we don't have a choice. We're placed in that role. Especially when it comes to like having families and things, like men don't have to multitask getting pregnant. Is that their fault? No. That's just part of the situation. We're forced into these roles, and then we learn to become adept at them.
Nikki, I'm glad that you said that, because in our research before we launched this series today, one of the things that I found is that women often come into leadership roles within companies that are already starting to crash, already starting to go down the hill, and they bring a woman in to fix it. So that's why I think sometimes people will believe, oh, well, a woman can't fully lead because, look what she did to this company. But a lot of times she inherits an abysmal, I'm gonna steal that word from you, Nikki. She inherits an abysmal way. An abysmal company. But what I love to see is that when a woman jumps in and can lead better through a crisis, when that company is turned around, and does she continue to lead, or does a man continue? Oh, hi, Mazakeen.
I'm so sorry. She's normally outside during these shows, and she's inside.
Mazakeen is a leader, guys. For all of you who don't know, she's a sassy leader, and when she wants something, she'll let you know, right, Nikki?
According to her 8-month-old sassy puppiness, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kimberly hopped on and said, I've always felt a certain kind of way, and it's being confirmed today on MINDTRIP. Yes. And again, this is not men bashing. Like I know we're joking about that, but it is just whether, again, sometimes it's faulted by men, sometimes not. It is just the situation society has placed us in, but that doesn't mean it's any less real. And we have to think about those things. And Taylor, with what you were saying with women taking over companies, so let's put ourselves in that situation. Okay, fine. A woman has taken over, has been assigned, crap has hit the fan, we're delegated to try to fix things. Fine. And going back to talking about those judgments earlier, so we have more responsibilities in different areas, okay? We have to be careful not to be bossy while still taking command, and there's a very fine line to walk on that. And then, there are so many other ways we are judged that men just generally aren't. When I think about speech patterns, if we're too fast, then we're emotional or neurotic. If our tone is too high pitched, which we have no control over the pitch of our voice. I know I have a very small voice. I was born that way. We're told that we're not taken seriously, or I was told as I was a director of a company, I was called little lady and patted on top of the head at 28 years old. And when I kind of looked at this gentleman, he goes, well, because your voice is so tiny. Okay. Like, you have tiny fingers. Like, what do you want me to say? Are you going to judge you on that? So wow. We judged in ways, like, I've never gone into a company where I'm like, oh, that man's voice is too deep. Right. Or, like, we just don't really judge men in the same way that women are judged.
Yeah, we're scrutinized, right? Women are often scrutinized and, unfortunately held back. But I think you hit the nail on the head, Nikki, when you talked about society roles and society genders. Even Tiffany is laughing, saying tiny hands. I'm glad you guys like
sausage fingers. I didn't call him out. I said he wasn't a good leader because he had sausage fingers.
That's funny, Nikki. I love it. I love it. I lost my train of thought. Where was I? What was I saying? Where was I at with that?
Scrutinized more.
Okay, thank you. Women tend to be more scrutinized, and that is because of the gender roles and the gender norms. Even as I was writing my dissertation on female sex offenders, I'm finding that, women are viewed as the more nurturing role, the more caregiving role. They're never meant to be dominant or assertive, kind of like a little lady. Oh, how can you help build me up? And I find that to be true when we talk about leadership as well. Women are dainty. We're supposed to be more behind the scenes. How can we, polish up that male leader and make him look great? But I think it's time to switch that narrative because you're right. You can't just tap a male CEO or a male director on the head and say, "Oh, little boy voice," because then what would happen to you? Right? They would say that you're emotional, or whatever terms that they like to assign to women who speak out. They're going to come for you about that.
Mm-hmm. So I had written down like a little paragraph, and I want to read it because Taylor, you essentially said this, and it just reiterates it. Women and men actually lead quite similarly. However, stereotypes still exist. Women were more often seen as having a taking care behavior, whilst men were seen as being better at taking charge. The caretaker behaviors included supporting others, like you said, and rewarding subordinates, while the male leaders were perceived to be more effective at delegating and problem solving. Simply by virtue of gender, men were perceived to be better leaders.
Well, holy crap. Literally, that's what the research shows.
The research shows.
The research shows that, right? And, I'm just thinking about what you said. I'm not sure if you can look up, Nikki, but the definition of a leader, maybe I can look that up quick. But being able to problem solve, being able to delegate, yes, those are all excellent qualities of a leader. But there's so much more that goes on behind the scenes besides problem solving and delegating. You have to speak to, and you have to build up those who are below you. You have to encourage, you have to inspire, you have to lead. And in my opinion, could be biased or it could be the research. It seems to me like women are better able to, kind of hit all of those aspects. And again, I know I mentioned this earlier, but I think it's time to shift that narrative and to look more into women as being leaders and place them in these roles within the community and at work. And in my opinion, it's inspiring. It's inspiring, and we need more than 10%.
Well, and when you look back, so we know that women are leading more than 10%. However, the problem is like those are the women in titles and roles. But even looking back at the first women of the country, right? The first woman's job is undefined, and she can kind of make it what she wants. But yet some of the biggest policy changes have come from the initiatives that the first women have posed to their husbands. They're the ones that, when presidents lay down at night, they're the thing they hear before they go to sleep and the first thing they hear when they wake up. And I'm pretty sure it was Woodrow Wilson. He had a stroke while he was in office, did not want his staff to know. He was bedridden for over a month while his wife ran the country, did everything. And there has been so many times throughout history where women were actually running the country because, whether it's because of health issues, there used to be a time when health transparency in presidents was not like it is now. So those things were kept hidden. And there's just example after example after example of women leading behind the scenes. Because again, as soon as we get out in front of the public eye, it's what's she wearing? I think, now this isn't me supporting or not supporting a presidential candidate. I'm just thinking back to the primaries, when Hillary Clinton was running, and they kept talking about like why she chose that shade of blue and why is she wearing a pantsuit? She's dressed like a man. Why doesn't she wear a dress? Like her pantsuit makes her look like a shark. No one was saying anything about the pantsuit that the men were wearing because that's just not a thing. So we get scrutinized for our looks, for how we speak, for what we wear. And then we still have to provide the same amount of skills and learn them, just like
right. Everyone. You're calling out like what women in leadership roles experience, and that makes me think about Michelle Obama too. When Obama was president, she wore this beautiful dress with her arms out, I'm assuming the weather was somewhat like it is today in central Pennsylvania. It's beautiful today. You can walk outside with a shirt like that, a shirtless dress on today. And they said, "Oh my gosh,
shirtless dress?
A shirtless dress." Sleeveless dress.
I mean,
you got it. But like they're criticizing her, like, oh my gosh, why would she wear that? But they're not focusing on the type of woman that she is, the leader that she is, what she's doing for the United States as the first lady. It's sad to me. And then also while we're talking about presidential candidates, what really upset me once Biden got into office and then his wife, Dr. Joe Biden, right? She has a doctor of education, I believe. I'm not 100%, but she's a doctor and a writer. An entire article about her saying that she stopped calling herself doctor. She's a woman. Come on, like it's not like she went to medical school. She's not saving lives, and to stop embarrassing herself by calling herself Dr. Biden. And I sat back and thought, like, Nikki and I know, like, as women who are obtaining their doctorate currently, there's a lot of work that goes into it. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of time away from your family and friends. You earn that. Would he have written that about a man?
Exactly. And Taylor, you said something else about how women are judged. But when you had said Michelle Obama, so I'm almost finished with her book, Becoming. But what I did not realize, and I'm embarrassed to say, I just did not look into her that much while she was the first lady, is that she not only has the same degrees Barack had, but when he was working at a law firm in Chicago, he was actually the summer intern and she was his mentor because she had more experience and more education than him at the time. So she mentored him in this law firm. He decided to get into politics. She wanted to have kids. She put her career on the back burner because it's so hard to have these supporting roles. And she chose to support him. It's not that he made her, but nonetheless, Michelle was his mentor. He was the summer intern. And yet, she got criticized for having her arms out or for picking a healthy initiative for kids and was just criticized over every little thing when this woman's intelligence is just immaculate and amazing.
Can I just pause and bring back in Proverbs 31, verse 26, Nikki, just based off what you said, and Michelle Obama being a mentor to Barack. When she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instructions with kindness. She didn't look down upon him. She didn't flaunt, as far as we know, she didn't flaunt her education and the holier than thou, better than you spirit. It seems to me like she spoke life into this man and gave him enough inspiration and courage and kindness that he was able to become the president of the United States umpteen years later. Like, that's the power of women, guys. I know this is a women-driven network, but seriously, that's the power of women. We can speak life into anyone.
And I think, so is it unfair that we have to jump through these extra hurdles? Yes. Taylor, you're a woman and then a woman of color. You have even more hurdles to jump through, right? So is any of this fair? No, but is it the reality of the situation in which we're in? Yes. And so I think if we take anything out of the show today is that, yes, we have to take extra steps. We do have to be more careful in how we speak. We have to work harder. We cannot get away with the same things. But if we can consistently show that and regulate those emotions in a positive way, and learn how to take command in a male-dominated world, what that does is gives generations of our kids and other women the inspiration and ability to do the same, so that this doesn't continue forever.
Absolutely. And this is probably my third time saying it this show, but it is truly time to switch that narrative. Women need to be looked at as leaders, as capable, as enough. No questions about her emotional background or being neurotic. We have to assign the same meaning and the same equality, if you will, to women who want to lead. I think it's time for that. We're in 2021 here. I think women have more than established themselves and proven themselves to be able to lead again through crises and just in regular life. We're able to lead at home. We're able to lead in the community. We're able to take off our hat and become a leader in a different way. Like, we need that 10% to probably go up to, I don't know. And I know it needs to, I was going to say it needs to be 50-50. It needs to be equal. But in my opinion, the world's not ready for that. Even if we could get it to like 25% to inspire more women to come forward and lead, I think that would be a shift in the right direction.
And yes. Yes. And I just, there are so many steps going. I know there are things going in the right direction. For example, I know of an agency who they promoted a woman up while she was pregnant, knowing that she was going to go on maternity leave. And I think that's a wonderful step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And that almost the entire agency is run by women. All the directors are women. But then when you look at who are the CEOs and the big financial advisors, the top 3 people who run the company, all 3 men. And so although we are making strides, I do think that focusing on leadership is huge. Taking care of our mental health, dealing with those traumatic experiences, and then making sure we know how to lead. I know from Taylor and I doing leadership coaching, we coach both men and women. If you're the right kind of client, we're going to work with you. But we tend to work more with women because once we started seeing that comparison of seeing, women business owners and leaders and how to get promotions or how to increase profits and the extra hoops that women had to jump through, it just spoke to us of these are the people we want to help because it is so much more difficult.
Yeah, I agree. And that kind of leads me into like a very, very common myth and misconception. Wow, that was a tongue twister. Myth and misconception about women in leadership roles. And that's, women are just not as ambitious as men. And maybe that's because, women they have the household, they want to be ambitious in that way and raising up a family, and they're not capable of taking on that ambition within the workplace. But I want to say there was a study, I can't even quote who it was, but it was a longitudinal study where they followed 10,000 female and male graduates, I think it was Masters of Business graduates, and they found that women equally aspire, just like men, to become CEOs or to become a leadership in the company. But even though some of the women that didn't have the children, they still had those same aspirations. So that's Let's debunk that right now. Women are just the same as men. I know you said this in the beginning, Nikki. They're just the same as men in terms of ambition and ready to take on the world and lead.
Absolutely. And if you think about too, okay, why is there a perception of women being less ambitious? Well, and this is not coming from the research. This is coming from Nikki and Taylor's leadership coaching, and this is Nikki's personal opinion. So Taylor, I'm not even gonna group you into this in case you immensely disagree with me. But when we think about why are women perceived as less ambitious, men traditionally have been the bread makers, the breadwinners. Their job was to go to work, and women's job was to stay home and take care of kids. Yes, that narrative is shifting, but there's still that perception of, men's salaries are much more looked at and scrutinized than women's, and that's a big deal. If the only thing I had to focus on primarily was working all day, if I was coming home and I didn't have to clean or do the laundry or do as much caring for my kids, I could play with my kids, put them to bed, but the amount of time spent with them wasn't there, I could get a lot more done, right? But when it's taking care of the dog or the kids, I'm gonna throw Sean underneath the bus. I have to schedule his chiropractor appointments because he doesn't remember to do it. And then he shows up and they're like, you didn't schedule. And he's like, but I come every Monday at 3:30. You still have to schedule, Sean. You still have to do the, when we're responsible for so much, it may be perceived that we're less ambitious, not out of lack of ambition, but because we are juggling. But, and I think a lot of companies look at that, well, if this person's juggling so much, she can't put forth her full effort into work. But again, circling back to the research, what we show is that because we're able to juggle, we're more capable of handling crises, and we're more capable of looking at things from a bigger picture, which is an inherent leadership skill in and of itself. So I think instead of looking at it from a deficit perspective of women are trying to juggle her kids and her husband and how can she focus on work, it's that because of these skills, she'll be able to handle and manage better at work.
I love that, Nikki. And I immensely agree with you, not immensely disagree,
okay.
Because I have to schedule everything for Tommy as well. I mean, yes, he goes to work all day and he works hard. He's a banker, blah, 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 good for him. But
sorry, that was your good for him.
Good for him. Good for him. But I'm home all day with the dog, and then and running a business and consulting, and I still get the what's for dinner. WFD, what's for dinner? Or, hey, did the car inspection is due this month. Did you schedule that? Well, when can I go? Or, hey, I'm going with my friends or my cousins to Miami. Can you help me book the flight? I'm just like, What would men do without women? And again, it's not men bashing, right? But we are able to juggle so much. And, I just get inspired when I see a woman out there doing her thing, because what you see, what she presents, there's often so much more going on behind the scenes that you don't even know about, that she's juggling or experiencing, whether it's, like you mentioned earlier, Nikki, whether she's going through trauma or whether she is personal growth, just trying to overcome things, still putting on that face as a leader. To me, that's amazing and inspiring, and I love it.
Mm-hmm. And again, yes, this is sounding like bashing, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, put it in there. We're not male bashing. We're just focusing on women and what we do. Yeah.
And so Sean and I were talking about, we were joking about his nothing box because, I always have 1,000 things I'm thinking about. And Sean often is in his nothing box. I'll look over or we're going for the walk. I'm like, what are you thinking about? He's like, literally nothing going on. And he loves that. And I look at him and I smile and I appreciate that. And then I was thinking, women aren't afforded, because I was like, why do men have a nothing box and women don't? And Taylor and I have talked about this. Mm-hmm. It's because we don't have the luxury of having a nothing box, because we're trying to fight our way in the workplace while overcoming these obstacles, while having extra judgment, while deciding if having a family, which is something that a lot of, men want families too. I know, Taylor, your husband really wants kids right now, right? Men and women both want families, but it's the woman's job to carry and then take care after, because that's how our bodies were designed. But when you put in all of these things and added little intricacies in place, we don't even have an option to have a nothing box. And I think that's the difference. It's not that women, again, we're built differently than men. It's not that we have different capabilities. We're just forced into a position where we don't have an option. And I think the more we talk about leadership, the more we take care of ourselves, the more we invest in ourselves to learn how to become better leaders and show up in the world. That's the only way things are going to get better.
I agree. And, I wanted to circle back to what you said about nothing box. For all of you ladies who are watching, I think you get a funny kick out of it, and it's going to help you understand your significant other. It's by Mark Grungor. I think it's Gungor, Gungor. It's called A Tale of Two Minds or Two Brains. I'm sorry, I'm messing this all up today. He just literally talks about women and their mind. Women, if you open your laptop right now, how many tabs do you have open across the top? Because I'm sitting at mine right now and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm gonna stop at 15 because there's more and a plus. That is the best example of what happens for women in terms of juggling everything, right? We're multitasking, we keep moving, have different integral parts playing in our minds, even though we're focusing on one task. We're always thinking about other things. What's for dinner? When do I have to get the kids? This work project deadline? How can I mentor somebody today? But if you ask a man to pull up their phone or their laptop, they'll probably have 1, maybe 2 tabs open. And that just goes to show, I'll think about one thing and focus on this, and then maybe this. But they have the luxury of having a nothing box where they can just come home and kick up their feet and think about nothing. I sometimes wish, Nikki, and I bet you do too, that we could have a nothing box even for 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Girl, I have 2 stories for this. One, I had nothing in my nothing box once in the entire time I've been dating Sean. On the drive home, we were just driving home one day, and I don't know why, like the song La Cucaracha was stuck in my head. Like I was being real silly. I was not under the influence of anything. Like that was just Nikki, and I like mentally checked out and was singing that. And Sean's like, are you okay? Did you drink and I didn't know it? Like, are you having a mental breakdown? I'm like, no, there's just nothing happening for a change. Literally, it lasted under 5 minutes. Like from the gas station home, I was like, well, that's over. But even thinking about when we go away, and I know Taylor and I, we travel a lot, so we're constantly calling our significant others. Hey, did you turn on the Roomba? Don't forget to do this. Hey, let the dog out at this time before you leave for work. Like it's a constant check-in while we're traveling, trying to catch flights. I know Taylor was catching a flight to California with me at like 2 in the morning, and she's like, Tommy, don't forget to like upload your resume or do this. Like, I mean, we're just constantly doing this. And I'm just like, what happens if we don't? We can't afford to find out what happens because crap will hit the fan. Like crap will hit the fan and explode everywhere, and then we'll be the ones cleaning it up. And so I think again, I know with Sean, like he doesn't do this out of purpose. Like he's been conditioned this way, and then I enable him. So it's not at all his fault. But that being said, we have these amazing leadership capabilities inherently with us on the day-to-day. We've been trained from the time we are little girls to be able to handle it. And yet we're not given the opportunities, or we're too scared to take the opportunities, or we just don't have quite enough of that opportunities. And ladies, I'm telling you, like, I'm tired of this narrative. I'm tired of it. I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want my little girls, not that I have any yet, but I want them to grow up in a world where it's not a big deal when a woman's a leader. So like, duh, mom, hasn't it always been this way? And I could be like, yes, like, you know what? Just, I want them to live in that world. Not in this world where we have to learn how to fight to be equal.
Yeah. And again, it's about shifting the narrative. Women are capable of so much more than what is known. I think that's how I can sum up what I was going to say. I love to bring in cognitive behavioral therapy principles. So I'm going to bring that in today. When you think about how our thoughts influence our behaviors, influence our feelings, let's just take that thought that women are not as capable as men, period. Whether that's in leadership, whether that's ambition, ability to become a CEO, like whatever. When you have that thought and it's ingrained in your minds as a woman, you might even feel like low self-worth, or you might feel not as confident in your abilities and in your skills to show up and even prove that you're a leader, because you're being stifled. And that's the behavior, right? You're being stifled and you're holding yourself back, all because of what society has said about women. Women aren't as ambitious as men. Women can't lead a company. The workplace is a meritocracy. Women don't have the skills to make effective leaders. It's all baloney. Baloney. Women do have what it takes. And it's time to put your skills and move them forward. We got to get rid of those stereotypes. We got to get rid of all of that because it's time. Mildred said, I want to say almost 10 minutes ago, I missed it. This is very encouraging as a leader. Mildred, this is your time. We're speaking to you today. This is your time to show up as the leader. This is the green light. You got what it takes.
And Taylor, something you said with more myths, when we talk about women in the workplace women are too emotional, even though the research says, especially by research by Brene Brown, who, she spent 20 years studying leadership in the workplace, is that one of the biggest things a leader can do to have influence and have a positive and cultivate a good working environment is having empathy, right? So we have to understand emotions. We have to understand how emotions impact other people, have accountability, and then have empathy towards other people. That's not forgiving. That's not sympathy. Empathy is just being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes to understand where they're coming from so that you can deal with conflict, so that you can deal with difficult people, right? That's part of being a leader. And so we know and women are inherently good at having empathy because we have to be as those caregivers. That's where that benefits us, right?
Amen.
So I hate to see when it's when you get too many women together, like the hens clucking or the gossip runs rampant. And in thinking back when Taylor and I have done larger organizations, when we've worked with them, there does in many places tend to be an inherent gossipy situation. But then as soon as we give these women leadership skills, that stops. And so it's not that this is a trait inherent in women. It's that, again, we're not always afforded the same education or opportunities or skills as leaders, right? And so we're working with what we know sometimes. Once you give those leadership skills, all of that stops and companies excel. And so I think the myth is, instead of saying there's something inherently wrong with us, it's, do these women have the same set of skills? If not, how do we give them the same set of skills? And that's part of what Taylor and I do as well. I think it's just so important to understand how these myths are cultivated, why, and then sometimes it just takes a little bit of leadership skills to rectify them, and it is amazing what can happen.
And in trauma therapy, the focus is highlighting some negative thoughts, some negative inner voices, and calling them out. We want to do the same with leadership. We want to identify those negative thoughts and those myths and conceptions about women and call it out and switch the narrative. Now we can start viewing ourselves as equal to, as being as ambitious as, insert the comparison. We are as blank as. It doesn't matter. We're able to lead. We're skilled. We can juggle. We can lead in crises. We have empathy. That's not to say a man doesn't, but women do too.
Amen
and
to that one.
We need to get it to 50%. And I hope you guys can all take this message away. I'm pulling Beyonce. Have to. I wish we could get that song playing in the background, because who runs the world? Girls. Okay.
Love it.
Girls run the world. Nikki, should we share? I know we talked about this, but the virtues of a noble woman is 21 verses, but I really think it's worth ending the show with. Should we do it?
I think that's a perfect way to close today.
Okay, I'll read the first 10 and you read the last 10. Or do you want me to just read it all?
You read all of it.
Yeah. Oh my God. All right. Okay. Virtues of a noble woman. So this is Proverbs chapter 31, and it starts at verse 10. A wife of noble character, who can find? She is far more precious than rubies. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he lacks nothing of value. She brings him good and not harm all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She rises while it is still night to provide food for her household and portions for her maidservants. She appraises a field and buys it. From her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and shows that her arms are strong. She sees that her gain is good, and her lamp is not extinguished at night. She stretches out her hands to the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for they are all clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for the bed. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known at the city gate, where he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchants. Strength and honor are her clothing. She can laugh at the days to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband praises her as well. Many daughters have done noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her fruit of her hands and let her work be praised at the gates. Literally what we talked about this entire show. Look at that. Look at how much the woman has juggled. She's helping the poor in the community. She's making sure her family is clothed. She's waking up in the middle of the night to make sure her family has food. She's serving the servants. She's taking care of the home while her husband's out in the community leading the land. Talk about juggling, Nikki. Talk about just being able to multitask and work feverishly and effortlessly and still being happy, still praising the Lord, and still being able to lead. That's powerful to me. I got goosebumps.
Behind the scenes.
I got goosebumps.
I know. Ladies, and I hope some men watching too, thank you so much for joining us. You know, we're going to continue this leadership series for the rest of the month and focusing on those hurdles and how obstacles that women face and how they can overcome them. If you're interested at all in working on trauma recovery or how to gain those leadership skills, please check us out. Our website is visiondrivencoaching.com. You can check us out on social media. Taylor, would you like to give?
Absolutely. So we expanded. So we should have mentioned that to you guys. We expanded our business to now include trauma recovery coaching. So what Nikki said, we do leadership coaching for executive leaders and now trauma recovery. So our leadership page is at BK LLC 19. So if you are a leader and you want to learn and get some content there, please follow us there. If on the other end of that, you are experiencing trauma and just kind of figuring out your own healing from trauma. There you go. Okay. Don't criticize me because I'm a woman and my speech is messed up right now. But that's going to be at the Sex Trauma Coach on Instagram. Sorry, go ahead, Nikki.
And I would say if you're a woman experiencing both, because a lot of times these things are not separate, do not fret. You know, Taylor and I are skilled in helping you both. I would say just think about like what is holding you back the most right now. And that might help lead you in the direction to go. But if you're just not sure, have a consultation and we will help figure that out for you.
Absolutely. So guys, thank you again for tuning in on another beautiful Wednesday. Whether you're watching outside in the beautiful weather or you're indoors, we appreciate your viewership. Tuning in to the Mind Trip, where we continue to explore the connections between mindsets and mental health. And we hope to see you ladies here next Wednesday.
Bye.
Have a good day.